On the night of their fifth wedding anniversary, tech billionaire Marcus Blackwood committed an unforgivable mistake. While his 7 months pregnant wife, Victoria Sterling, waited at their Manhattan penthouse with a meticulously planned celebration, he was across the city, orchestrating what he believed would be the perfect exit from his marriage. He thought he could control the narrative, manage the fallout like one of his corporate acquisitions. But Marcus had gravely underestimated the woman who carried his child. The explosion that followed wouldn't just destroy their marriage, it would detonate his entire empire and leave him utterly humiliated in front of New York's most powerful elite. The Sterling Blackwood penthouse occupied the top 3 floors of a glass tower overlooking Central Park. It was a monument to new money meeting old Marcus's tech billions merged with Victoria's Boston Brahmin heritage. At 32, Victoria possessed the kind of refined beauty that whispered rather than shouted. Her honey-blonde hair was always perfectly styled, her clothes impeccably chosen. Tonight, she wore a flowing ivory maternity dress that made her look ethereal, almost angelic. She had spent weeks planning this evening, coordinating with their private chef, selecting the perfect wines Marcus could enjoy while she sipped her sparkling grape juice. The dining room was transformed into an intimate paradise. Hundreds of white roses, the same flowers from their wedding, filled crystal vases. Candles flickered on every surface, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Their wedding china gleamed on the table, and soft jazz played from hidden speakers. It was a desperate attempt to recapture the magic they'd lost somewhere between board meetings and fertility treatments. Victoria checked her phone again. 6:45. Marcus had promised to be home by 6:30. She placed a protective hand over her swollen belly as the baby gave a strong kick. After 3 years of trying, 2 miscarriages, and countless rounds of IVF, this pregnancy was their miracle. She'd planned to give Marcus the ultimate anniversary gift tonight. The gender reveal envelope sat in a silver box beside his place setting. They were having a son. At 6:52, the elevator chimed. Victoria's heart leaped as she heard Marcus's familiar footsteps in the foyer. She smoothed her dress and put on her brightest smile. But the man who entered the dining room looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Marcus Blackwood stood 6'3", with jet black hair and piercing green eyes that had graced the cover of Forbes 3 times. At 38, he was at the peak of his powers, having built Blackwood Industries into a tech empire worth $40 billion. He barely glanced at the romantic setup. "Jesus, Vic, what's all this?" His tone was irritated, dismissive. He was already loosening his Hermes tie, checking his phone with his other hand. "Happy anniversary, darling." Victoria kept her voice light, though her heart was sinking. "I thought we could celebrate properly, just the 2 of us." Marcus finally looked up from his phone, seeming to notice her for the first time. His expression shifted to one of mild annoyance mixed with what might have been guilt. "Anniversary. Right. Look, I told you about the Korean investors. They're only in town tonight. This deal could add another $5 billion to our valuation." "You said that meeting was at 4. Victoria's smile was becoming harder to maintain. "I checked with your assistant. The Koreans flew out this afternoon." For a split second, Marcus's mask slipped, but he recovered quickly, his face hardening into the expression he used when firing executives. "Plans changed. They extended their stay. We're meeting at Le Bernardin at 8. "Le Bernardin is closed for renovations." The words came out before Victoria could stop them. She'd tried to book it herself last month. This time, Marcus's pause was longer. His jaw clenched, and she saw something flash in his eyes, anger at being caught, perhaps, or contempt for her attention to detail. "I meant La Perle. Christ, Victoria, what is this? An interrogation? I run a $40 billion company. I can't drop everything for a dinner." La Perle, the restaurant where he'd proposed to her 5 years ago. The most romantic, intimate restaurant in Manhattan, where reservations were booked months in advance. A strange calm settled over Victoria. She knew with sudden, absolute clarity that her husband was lying. But more than that, she understood that he wanted her to know he was lying. This wasn't carelessness, it was cruelty. "Of course," she said, her voice eerily serene. "I understand. Business comes first." Marcus was already heading toward their bedroom. "Don't wait up. These things always run late. We'll do something this weekend." I'll have Patricia book us a table somewhere nice. Patricia, his 23-year-old assistant who looked at him like he hung the moon. Victoria watched her husband disappear into their master suite, presumably to change clothes and add more cologne, for their business dinner, at the most romantic restaurant in the city, on their anniversary. She stood alone among the roses and candles, feeling the baby move inside her. The silence was deafening. Then, with movements that felt disconnected from her body, she picked up her phone and scrolled to a contact she rarely called. "Mrs. Blackwood?" Robert Pemberton answered on the second ring. He'd been Marcus's driver for 12 years since before their marriage. He was a quiet, dignified man in his 60s who'd always treated her with genuine kindness. "Robert, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." Her voice was steady, businesslike. "My husband's dinner reservation tonight. Who is he meeting?" The silence stretched so long she thought he might have hung up. Finally, Robert sighed. "Mrs. Blackwood, I don't think I should—" "Please, Robert, I'm 7 months pregnant with his child. I deserve the truth." Another pause. Then quietly, "The reservation is under Mr. Blackwood's name, for 2 people. The second name is Sophia Chen." Sophia Chen. Victoria knew the name. A 26-year-old art curator who'd been appearing at the same charity galas, the same exclusive parties. Beautiful, ambitious, and exactly the kind of woman who would see Marcus as her ticket to the top. "Thank you, Robert," Victoria said calmly. "That's all I needed to know. Mrs. Blackwood, I'm sorry. You're a good woman. You deserve better." She ended the call and stood in her beautiful, empty dining room. The chef appeared in the doorway looking concerned. "Madame, shall I proceed with the first course?" "No, Henri. We won't be dining tonight. Please pack everything up. Take it home to your family." She paused. "And Henri? Send the invoice directly to my husband's office. Triple your usual rate." As the staff quietly dismantled her perfect anniversary dinner, Victoria walked to the window and stared out at the glittering city below. She could hear Marcus in the bedroom, humming as he got ready for his date. He sounded happy, free. Her phone buzzed, a text from her brother James. "Hey sis, how's the anniversary dinner going? Did he love the surprise?" She stared at the message, then typed back, "Change of plans. Can you have Harrison Cross meet me at the office in an hour? It's time." James's response was immediate. "Finally, I'll have the car waiting downstairs in 20. Victoria Sterling Blackwood placed one hand on her belly and felt her son kick. "Don't worry, little one," she whispered. "Mommy's going to fix this. Daddy thinks he's so clever, but he forgot one very important thing. He forgot who I really am." She walked to her closet, past the demure maternity wear, past the conservative society wife uniform she'd worn for 5 years. In the back, wrapped in tissue paper, hung a dress she'd bought in a moment of rebellion but never worn. Blood-red silk that would cling to every curve, including her pregnant belly. It was a dress that demanded attention, commanded respect, and promised retribution. As she heard Marcus call out that he was leaving, she began to transform. The grieving wife was about to become something far more dangerous, a sterling woman scorned. And Marcus Blackwood was about to learn that some mistakes couldn't be managed, minimized, or merged away. Some mistakes were fatal. Victoria stood before her full-length mirror, the blood-red silk dress transforming her from abandoned wife to avenging goddess. The fabric clung to her body, accentuating rather than hiding her pregnancy. She looked powerful, fertile, dangerous, everything Marcus had stopped seeing in her. Her hands were perfectly steady as she applied her makeup with surgical precision. Dramatic winged eyeliner, sharp enough to cut. Deep crimson lipstick that matched the dress. She was painting on war paint. From the jewelry safe, she selected pieces that had nothing to do with Marcus. The Sterling family diamonds, a necklace that had belonged to her great-grandmother, a woman who'd survived the 1929 crash and built the family fortune back from nothing. Earrings that her mother had worn when she'd hostile takeovered her first company. These weren't just accessories, they were talismans of female power passed down through generations. Her phone rang. "James. The car's downstairs. Harrison's already at the office with the papers." "What papers?" Victoria asked, though she suspected she knew. "The ones we've been preparing since the day you married that narcissistic bastard." Dad always said to hope for the best, but plan for the worst. The Sterling family motto, remember? She did remember. Her father, may he rest in peace, had never trusted Marcus. Too hungry, he'd said. Men like that devour everything in their path, including the people who love them. I'll be down in 5 minutes, she told James. But first she had one more call to make. She dialed a number she'd memorized but never used. Catherine Chen. The voice was professional, clipped. Miss Chen, this is Victoria Blackwood. I believe you know my husband. A sharp intake of breath. Then, cautiously, Mrs. Blackwood. I'm not sure what you've heard, but I'm not calling to threaten you, Sophia. I'm calling to warn you. In approximately 1 hour, you're going to be sitting across from my husband at La Perle, drinking champagne and listening to his promises. He'll tell you about new beginnings. He'll promise to fund your gallery, to introduce you to collectors, to change your life. He's very convincing. I should know I fell for the same performance 5 years ago. I don't know what you're talking about. But Sophia's voice lacked conviction. He's using you to hurt me. Once he's done, once I'm sufficiently humiliated, he'll discard you like a used tissue. You're not special to him, Sophia. You're just convenient. Young, beautiful, and ambitious enough to be flattered by his attention. There was a Sophia before you, and there will be one after. You're just trying to check your email in about an hour. I'm sending you something that might interest you. Photos from last year's Art Basel. Marcus with a redhead named Natasha. They lasted 3 months before he got bored. Before that, there was Amelia, a blockchain developer. 2 months. I have files on all of them. I used to torture myself with them, but now I think they're meant for you. Consider it a public service. She hung up before Sophia could respond. Let the seeds of doubt take root. Let them poison Marcus's perfect evening from the inside. Victoria took one last look in the mirror. The woman staring back at her was unrecognizable. Gone was the accommodating society wife who'd spent 5 years dimming her light to let her husband shine brighter. In her place stood someone her sterling ancestors would recognize, a predator dressed in silk and diamonds. She grabbed her clutch, ensuring her phone was fully charged. She had a feeling she'd want to document this evening. As she walked through the penthouse, she noticed things she'd been blind to before. The artwork all chosen by Marcus, all statements of his power and wealth. The furniture, modern, cold, uncomfortable, selected by his designer without any input from her. Even their wedding photos had been styled to show him in the best light, with her as a beautiful accessory. This had never been her home. It was his stage, and she'd been merely a prop. The private elevator descended smoothly, carrying her away from one life and toward another. In the parking garage, James waited beside a black town car, not one of Marcus's flashy sports cars, but a Sterling family vehicle, understated and bulletproof. Her brother took one look at her and whistled low. Jesus, Vic, you look like you're going to war. I am. She slid into the back seat. Harrison has everything ready? Everything. The prenup modification you signed last year when Marcus was rushing off to Shanghai? The one he didn't read carefully? It's going to be very expensive for him. And that's just the beginning. As they drove through the city, James filled her in on the details. The Sterling family had been quietly preparing for this day, moving pieces into position like a chess grandmaster setting up for checkmate. They owned significant shares in 3 of Blackwood Industries' main competitors. They had documentation of every one of Marcus's affairs, every questionable business deal, every SEC violation he thought he'd buried. Why didn't you tell me? Victoria asked, feeling a mix of gratitude and hurt. Because you loved him, James said simply. We hoped we'd never need to use any of it. We hoped he'd be the man you deserved, but just in case. He shrugged. Dad taught us well. Never go into any deal without an exit strategy. They pulled up to a nondescript building in the financial district. Sterling Holdings occupied the top 5 floors, but there was no sign, no ostentation. Old money didn't need to advertise. Harrison Cross was waiting in the conference room, papers spread across the mahogany table. At 72, he was a legend in New York legal circles, a man who'd destroyed empires with a few carefully chosen words. He stood when Victoria entered, his eyes taking in her appearance with approval. My dear, you look ready for battle. Good. You'll need that armor tonight. What's our position? Victoria asked, settling into a chair despite the dress. Strong. Stronger than Marcus realizes. The prenup he insisted on? It protects his premarital assets, yes. But it also contains Clause 15b, which he clearly never read. In the event of infidelity proven by clear documentation, the injured party is entitled to 50% of all assets acquired during the marriage, plus damages equal to 1 year of the cheating party's average income. Victoria felt her first real smile in months. How much? Given Blackwood Industries' growth during your marriage, approximately $2 billion, plus another $800 million in damages. And if he fights it? Harrison's smile was shark-like. Then we release the documentation of his insider trading from the Pembroke acquisition. The SEC would be very interested. There's also the matter of the sexual harassment settlements he's been hiding from the board. Sexual harassment? Victoria felt sick. 3 assistants in the past 2 years. Paid off, silenced. Nothing criminal, but enough to tank the stock price and trigger the morality clause in his CEO contract. Harrison leaned forward. Victoria, your husband isn't just a cheater. He's a liability to his own company. The board just doesn't know it yet. Victoria absorbed this information, feeling the last of her love for Marcus crumble to ash. She'd been trying to save a marriage to a man who didn't exist. The Marcus she'd fallen in love with was a carefully constructed facade, a performance designed to acquire her like any other asset. I don't want to destroy him, she said finally. I want him to destroy himself. Publicly. Completely. James grinned. That's my sister. So what's the plan? Victoria stood, smoothing her dress. The plan is simple. Marcus wants to humiliate me by flaunting his affair at our restaurant on our anniversary. He thinks I'll find out tomorrow from gossip that I'll cry quietly in private like a good little wife. He thinks he's writing the story. She picked up her clutch, checking the time. 8:15. They'd be on their appetizers by now. But tonight, I'm going to flip the script, literally. He wants a public scene? I'll give him one. But it won't be the story he planned. Harrison, I need you ready to file everything the moment I give the signal. James, I need you to make some calls. Every gossip blogger, every society photographer, every financial reporter in the city. Tell them to be at La Perle in 30 minutes if they want the story of the year. With pleasure, James said, already pulling out his phone. Victoria headed for the door, then paused. Oh, and Harrison? Call Margaret Blackwood. Tell her she might want to distance herself from her son's company. What's about to happen will be very damaging to the family brand. You want to warn his mother? Harrison asked, surprised. She's always been kind to me. She doesn't deserve to be collateral damage. Besides, Victoria's smile was cold. Imagine how Marcus will feel when he realizes his own mother chose my side. As she walked back to the car, Victoria felt the baby kick again, stronger this time, as if he could sense his mother's determination. That's right, little one, she murmured. We're Sterlings. We don't get mad. We get everything. The drive to La Perle took only 15 minutes, but it felt like a lifetime. Victoria used the time to center herself to push down any lingering hurt or hope. She couldn't afford weakness tonight. Tonight, she wasn't just Victoria Blackwood, abandoned wife. She was Victoria Sterling, heir to a dynasty, protector of her unborn child, and architect of her husband's downfall. As the car pulled up to the restaurant, she saw the first photographers already gathering. James's work. Perfect. The valet rushed to open her door, his eyes widening at her appearance. She handed him a $100 bill. Make sure my car stays right here, she said. I won't be long. The maitre d' at La Perle had seen everything in his 20 years of service, but his professional composure cracked when he saw her. Madam Blackwood, we weren't expecting. I'm here to join my husband, she said smoothly. I believe he's at our usual table. The man's face went pale. He knew exactly what table Marcus was at, and who he was with. Perhaps you would prefer to wait at the bar? I could inform Monsieur. That won't be necessary. Victoria moved past him with the unstoppable force of a tsunami. I know the way. Behind her, she heard the urgent whispers, the scrape of chairs as people turned to look. The photographers outside pressed against the windows. Someone's phone flashed. The stage was set. Victoria paused at the entrance to the main dining room, taking in the scene. Soft lighting, intimate tables, the cream of New York society enjoying their overpriced fare. And there, in the corner, their corner sat her husband. Marcus was leaning across the table, his hand covering Sophia's, his face animated with the charm he deployed like a weapon. Sophia was laughing at something he'd said, but Victoria noticed the slight tension in her shoulders, the way she kept glancing at her phone. Good. The seeds of doubt were already sprouting. Around them, other diners chatted and clinked glasses, oblivious to the bomb about to detonate in their midst. Victoria recognized several faces: David Ashford from Goldman Sachs, Marina Volkov, the pharmaceutical heiress, that awful gossip columnist Penelope Wade who'd been sniffing around their marriage for years. Perfect. The audience was assembled. The players were in position. Victoria took a deep breath, placed one hand protectively over her belly, and began her final walk as Mrs. Marcus Blackwood. It was time for the show to begin. The main dining room of La Perle fell silent like a wave, starting from the entrance and rippling outward until even the soft clink of silverware ceased. Victoria moved through the hushed space with deliberate grace, each step measured and purposeful. Her crimson dress seemed to glow in the candlelight, a slash of blood against the restaurant's muted palette. The 7-month swell of her pregnancy made her presence even more commanding. She was fertility and fury incarnate, and every eye in the room tracked her movement. At table 3, David Ashford's fork hovered halfway to his mouth, a piece of $40 foie gras forgotten. Marina Volkov grabbed her dinner companion's wrist, her diamonds catching the light as she whispered urgently. And Penelope Wade, the gossip columnist who lived for moments like this, was already typing furiously on her phone, her eyes darting between Victoria and the corner booth where Marcus sat frozen. Victoria felt their stares like physical touches, but kept her gaze fixed straight ahead. She'd learned long ago that power came not from acknowledging the audience, but from making them desperate for your attention. Let them wonder. Let them speculate. Let them lean in, hungry for the drama about to unfold. Marcus still hadn't moved. His hand remained on Sophia's, though his fingers had gone rigid. His face, that carefully controlled face that had graced magazine covers and boardrooms, underwent a fascinating transformation. The confident smile melted away, replaced first by confusion, then recognition, then pure, undiluted panic. His green eyes, usually so calculating, went wide with the realization that his meticulously planned evening was about to go catastrophically off script. Sophia noticed his change first. "Marcus? What's wrong?" She followed his stricken gaze and saw Victoria approaching. Even from across the room, Victoria could see the younger woman's expression shift as understanding dawned. The confident mistress suddenly looked very young and very frightened. Good. Victoria continued her approach, noting every detail of the scene before her. The intimate table with its single rose the same corner where Marcus had proposed 5 years ago. The bottle of champagne Cristal, of course, because Marcus never did anything halfway. The way they'd been leaning toward each other, lost in their private world. The remnants of oysters on the plate, an aphrodisiac for their special evening. Every detail was a small knife, but Victoria didn't bleed. She'd bled enough. Now it was time to draw blood from others. When she was 10 feet away, Marcus finally found his voice. "Victoria?" It came out strangled. Nothing like his usual commanding tone. "What are you doing here?" She didn't answer. Not yet. Instead, she stopped at a nearby table where Judge Catherine Whitman was dining with her husband. The judge, who'd known Victoria's father, looked up with concern. "Victoria, dear, are you all right?" "Perfect, Judge Whitman," Victoria replied, her voice carrying clearly through the silent room. "Just joining my husband for our anniversary dinner. 5 years today. Isn't that right, darling?" The word anniversary rippled through the room like a stone dropped in still water. Phones appeared in hands like magic. The soft buzz of recording filled the air. Victoria noted with satisfaction that someone, probably one of the young tech entrepreneurs at Table 7, was already live streaming on Instagram. Marcus stood abruptly, nearly knocking over his champagne flute. "Victoria, please! This isn't what it looks like." "Isn't it?" She finally looked at him fully, letting him see the ice in her eyes. "Because it looks like you're having dinner at our restaurant, at our table, on our anniversary, with someone who isn't your pregnant wife. But please do explain. I'm fascinated to hear how this isn't exactly what it looks like. Sophia tried to pull her hand away from Marcus, but he held it trapped, seemingly frozen. The girl and she was a girl, Victoria realized. Barely older than Marcus's youngest sister looked between them with growing horror. "He said you were separated," Sophia whispered. "He said the marriage was over, that you had an arrangement." "Did he?" Victoria's laugh was crystalline, sharp enough to cut. "How interesting. Tell me, did he mention the baby? Did he mention that we spent last weekend picking out nursery furniture? Did he mention that just this morning he kissed my belly and told our son good morning?" The color drained from Sophia's face. "Son? Oh, yes. It's a boy. I was planning to tell him tonight, actually. I had a whole celebration planned. Silly me." Victoria's hand moved to her stomach, drawing every eye to her obvious pregnancy. "But then Marcus has always been too busy for family matters. Isn't that right, darling?" Marcus's jaw worked soundlessly. The master negotiator, the man who could talk his way into or out of any deal, had no words. Behind him, Victoria caught sight of Richard Blackwood, Marcus's cousin and biggest rival within the family company. Richard was recording everything with barely concealed glee. "Please," Marcus finally managed, "can we discuss this privately?" "Privately?" Victoria's voice rose slightly, the first crack in her composure. "Like you were going to tell me privately? Through whispers and gossip and pitying looks? No, Marcus. You chose this venue. You chose this audience. So let's give them a show." She moved closer, and Marcus actually stepped back, bumping into his chair. Sophia finally succeeded in wrenching her hand free and shrank back in her seat. "Do you know what the saddest part is?" Victoria continued, her voice now carrying to every corner of the room. "It's not the cheating. Men like you always cheat. It's the cowardice. You couldn't even face me. You had to arrange this little performance, hoping I'd hear about it tomorrow, hoping I'd slink away quietly like a good little wife. That's not... But you forgot something crucial, darling." She smiled, and several people actually flinched. "You forgot that I'm not just your wife. I'm a sterling, and sterling women don't slink. We don't cry quietly into our pillows. We don't disappear conveniently when we become inconvenient." She turned to Sophia then, and her voice gentled, becoming almost kind. "Run, dear. Run now while you can. He'll promise you the world gallery openings, international shows, introductions to all the right people. But look at me. I had all of that before I met him. And see where it got me? 7 months pregnant, publicly humiliated, while he celebrates our anniversary with you." Sophia was crying now, mascara running in dark streams down her cheeks. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know about the baby, about tonight." "I believe you," Victoria said simply. "You're not the villain here. You're just another casualty of Marcus Blackwood's endless appetite for adoration." She looked back at her husband. "How many have there been, Marcus? I know about Natasha. Amelia. That little intern from Singapore, what was her name? Lynn? They all thought they were special, too." Gasps echoed through the room. Penelope Wade was typing so fast her phone was practically smoking. At the bar, Victoria spotted 2 financial reporters she recognized from the Wall Street Journal. They were both on phone calls, probably alerting their editors that tomorrow's headline had just changed. Marcus's face had gone from pale to flushed, anger finally overriding his shock. "You're making a scene," he hissed. "You're embarrassing yourself." "Am I?" Victoria touched her finger to her chin in mock thought. "Let's see. I'm not the one covered in lipstick marks, Sophia, dear. You might want to invest in a better transfer-proof formula. I'm not the one who forgot his wedding anniversary. And I'm definitely not the one who's about to lose half his fortune in the divorce." That got his attention. His eyes narrowed. "The prenup." "Clause 15B," she interrupted smoothly. "Infidelity clause. You really should read contracts before you sign them, darling, especially ones drawn up by sterling family lawyers. But then, you were so eager to lock down my family's connections, you'd have signed anything." The sound Marcus made was inhuman, somewhere between a growl and a whimper. Around them, the dinner theater continued. Someone, probably one of James's media contacts, had arrived with an actual camera. The flash was blinding. "Stop this," Marcus commanded, trying to reclaim some authority. "Whatever you think you're accomplishing, what I'm accomplishing?" Victoria laughed, and it was genuine this time. "Oh, Marcus, I'm not accomplishing anything. You did all the work yourself. I'm just here to witness it, to make sure everyone sees the real you, the man behind the Forbes covers and the TED Talks and the charity galas." She looked around the room, making eye contact with as many people as possible. "Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Marcus Blackwood, billionaire, visionary, cheater, coward, the man who had everything and threw it away for—" She gestured at Sophia, who seemed to be trying to disappear into her chair. "What was it he promised you, dear? A gallery in Chelsea? A profile in Art Forum? Your own pavilion at the Venice Biennale?" Sophia's sob confirmed that Victoria had hit close to the mark. "Standard package." Victoria nodded knowingly. "He's nothing if not consistent." The maitre d' had appeared, wringing his hands. Perhaps we could move this discussion to our private dining room?" "No need," Victoria said brightly. "I won't be staying long. I just wanted to see for myself, to confirm what I already knew, that my husband is exactly the man my father said he was, a small man with big appetites and no soul." She looked at Marcus one last time, really looked at him, searched for any trace of the man she'd fallen in love with. The man who'd quoted poetry on their first date, who'd flown her to Paris just because she mentioned wanting to see the Rodin Museum, who'd held her hand through the heartbreak of 2 miscarriages. That man was gone. Maybe he'd never existed at all. "Happy anniversary, Marcus," she said softly. "Enjoy your dinner. It's going to be the most expensive meal of your life." She turned to go, then paused, looking back over her shoulder. "Oh, and Sophia, check your email. I sent you something illuminating about your dinner companion's history. Consider it a gift from one woman to another." Sophia fumbled for her phone with shaking hands. Marcus lunged forward, trying to grab it, but Sophia twisted away. Her eyes widened as she read, then hardened as she looked at Marcus. 12 women in 5 years? She said, her voice rising. "You told me I was different. You told me I was special." "You are special," Marcus began, but Sophia was already standing, gathering her things. "I'm done," she announced. "With you? With this? With all of it. Your wife is right. I'm just another casualty." She looked at Victoria. "Thank you for the warning. I'm sorry for all of this." Victoria nodded graciously. "We all make mistakes. The important thing is learning from them." Sophia fled, leaving Marcus standing alone among the wreckage of his evening. The perfect tableau, the billionaire, abandoned by both wife and mistress, with 50 of New York's most influential people as witnesses. But Victoria wasn't quite finished. There was one more thing to do, one more nail to drive into the coffin of their marriage. She walked back to their table, their former table, and looked at the remnants of their romantic dinner. The champagne, the oysters, the single rose in its crystal vase. Such a perfect scene, such a lie. The baby kicked hard, as if sensing what was about to happen. Victoria placed both hands on the table, feeling the solid wood beneath her palms. 5 years of marriage reduced to this moment. 5 years of compromising, of dimming her light, of making herself smaller so he could feel bigger. No more. "You know what the really pathetic part is?" she said, her voice carrying clearly through the silent restaurant. "I would have forgiven you. Even after everything, I would have tried again. For our son, for the family we were supposed to be. But you couldn't even give me the respect of a conversation. You had to make it public. You had to humiliate me." She looked him in the eye. "So now, I'll return the favor." With a strength born of fury and heartbreak, Victoria gripped the edge of the table and heaved. The solid oak table seemed to hover in the air for a moment, defying gravity, as if the universe itself needed to pause and appreciate the magnitude of what was happening. Then physics reasserted itself with spectacular violence. Crystal shattered against marble floors in a symphony of destruction. The champagne bottle cartwheeled through the air, spraying Dom Perignon across Marcus's Tom Ford suit and catching Richard Blackwood, who'd been recording gleefully, full in the face. Oysters slid off plates in a grotesque ballet, one landing with perfect accuracy in Marcus's open mouth as he gasped in shock. The sound was extraordinary, not just the crash of breaking glass and clattering silverware, but the collective gasp of 50 of New York's most powerful people witnessing something they'd never forget. It was the sound of a carefully constructed world collapsing, of social order temporarily suspended, of raw, primal emotion trumping etiquette. Victoria stood amid the wreckage like a Valkyrie on a battlefield, her crimson dress unmarred by the chaos, her hands still extended from the push. Her chest heaved with exertion and emotion, but her face remained eerily calm. The only sign of her inner turmoil was the single tear that traced a silver path down her cheek, not of sadness, but of liberation. "Are you insane?" Marcus roared, spitting out the oyster and stumbling backward. Champagne dripped from his hair, and sauce béarnaise created an abstract painting down his front. His face had turned an alarming shade of purple, veins standing out on his forehead. "Do you have any idea what you've just done?" "Yes," Victoria said simply. "I've given you exactly what you wanted. A public scene. A story everyone will tell. Isn't that why you chose this place? This table? You wanted the world to know you were done with me. Well, congratulations, darling. Mission accomplished." Around them, the restaurant erupted. Waiters rushed forward with towels, trying to contain the spreading pool of champagne and scattered food. The maitre d' looked like he might faint. Penelope Wade was standing on her chair for a better angle, her photographer when had he arrived, clicking away rapidly. Someone in the corner was definitely live streaming on TikTok. "You crazy bitch!" Marcus snarled, his usual eloquence deserting him. He grabbed a napkin from a nearby table, futilely dabbing at his ruined suit. "You've lost your mind. Hormones have made you completely—" "Careful," Victoria interrupted, her voice dropping dangerously low. "Very careful what you say next. Because unlike our private conversations, this one is being recorded by she made a show of counting, at least 15 different phones. Your board of directors might be very interested in how you speak to your pregnant wife." Marcus's mouth snapped shut as the reality of the situation finally penetrated his rage. He looked around wildly, seeing phones pointed at him from every direction, seeing the barely concealed delight on his rivals' faces, seeing his carefully cultivated image crumbling in real time. "This is assault," he tried, grasping for familiar ground legal threats, corporate maneuvering. "I'll sue you for—" "For what? Flipping a table? In a restaurant I own 10% of?" Victoria smiled sweetly. The Sterling family had invested in L'Apparel years ago. Another detail Marcus had forgotten. "Besides, I think the courts will be more interested in your activities. Tell me, does the name Miranda Chen ring a bell?" Marcus went very still. "Ah, you do remember. Your assistant from 2 years ago? The one who left so suddenly? The one you paid $300,000 to sign an NDA?" Victoria pulled out her phone, scrolling casually. Funny thing about NDAs. They're void if criminal activity is involved. And Miranda kept such interesting recordings of your late-night meetings. "You're bluffing." But his voice lacked conviction. "Am I? Should we call her? She's waiting outside, actually." She was very eager to talk once my lawyers reached out. Victoria's smile was razor-sharp. "Amazing how many women you've left in your wake, Marcus. They all have stories. They all have evidence. And they're all very, very angry." The room had gone silent again, everyone straining to hear this new revelation. At the bar, one of the Wall Street Journal reporters was speaking urgently into his phone, probably dictating tomorrow's headline. Marcus looked around desperately, seeking an ally, a friendly face, someone who might help him salvage this disaster. But he found only avid curiosity and barely concealed schadenfreude. These people were his peers, not his friends. They'd smiled at his parties and laughed at his jokes, but only because of his power. Now, watching that power crumble, they were already calculating how to benefit from his fall. "We can discuss this at home," he tried one more time, his voice almost pleading. "This doesn't have to be public. Think of the baby. Think of what this stress might—" "Don't you dare." Victoria's composure finally cracked completely. "Don't you dare invoke our son now. Where was your concern for him when you were planning this little rendezvous? Where was your concern when you were whispering to your golf buddies that he probably wasn't even yours?" More gasps. This was new information, and the gossip mill was grinding overtime. That's not I never. August 15th, the Union Club. You'd had 4 scotches. You told Harrison Ashworth that for all you knew, the mailman was the father. Victoria's voice was shaking now, but not with weakness, with rage. You knew about your fertility issues. You knew how hard we tried, how many procedures we went through, and you still doubted me. You still accused me of exactly what you were doing. She pulled a folded paper from her clutch, holding it high enough for everyone to see the medical letterhead. Would you like to know the results of the paternity test, Marcus? The one I had done as an anniversary surprise? The one that shows with 99. 9% certainty that you're the father? Marcus's face went white. You had a test done? Of course I did. I knew what you were thinking. I saw the way you looked at me, at my belly, like I was a stranger, like I'd betrayed you. She laughed bitterly. The irony is exquisite, isn't it? You were so convinced I'd cheated that you gave yourself permission to do exactly that. I'm the father? His voice was barely a whisper. Congratulations. It's a boy, your son, the heir you always wanted, the continuation of the mighty Blackwood legacy. She crumpled the paper and threw it at him. It bounced off his champagne-soaked chest. Too bad he'll be carrying the Sterling name instead. You can't. Can't I? Watch me. Victoria turned to address the room at large. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the dinner theater, but you're all witnesses to something important tonight. The end of the Blackwood-Sterling alliance. The end of a marriage built on lies. And the beginning of what I promise will be the most expensive divorce in New York history. She looked back at Marcus one last time. My lawyers will be in touch. I suggest you hire the best team money can buy. You're going to need them. Victoria, wait. Marcus started forward, his hand outstretched. Don't touch me. The words cracked like a whip. Don't ever touch me again. You've lost that right. You've lost everything. She turned on her heel and began walking toward the exit, her head high, her stride confident despite the trembling in her hands. Behind her, she heard Marcus calling her name, heard the scrape of chairs as people moved aside, heard the continuous click of cameras capturing every moment. But loudest of all was the sound of her own heartbeat, strong and steady, pumping new life through her veins. She'd done it. She'd taken control of the narrative. She'd refused to be the victim in his story. As she reached the door, Judge Whitman stood up from her table. The older woman caught Victoria's arm gently, leaning in to whisper, Your father would be so proud of you, dear. That was magnificent. Victoria felt tears threaten again, but blinked them back. Thank you. If you need anything character witnesses, recommendations for judges who won't be swayed by his money, you call me. I will. She pushed through the door into the cool night air and found herself facing a wall of cameras. The paparazzi had arrived in force, their flashes creating a strobing effect that should have been overwhelming, but instead felt like applause. Victoria? Victoria? Is it true about the affair? Are you really divorcing? What about the baby? She paused on the sidewalk, knowing that this moment, this image, would be on every gossip site and financial newspaper by morning. The pregnant wife in the blood-red dress, leaving her philandering billionaire husband in ruins. I have only one thing to say, she announced, her voice carrying clearly. Women of New York, know your worth. Don't let any man, no matter how rich or powerful, make you feel less than you are. Don't dim your light for someone who was never worthy of it in the first place. She looked directly into the nearest camera. And Marcus, if you're watching this later, and I know you will, you're nothing if not vain. Remember this moment. Remember that you did this to yourself. Every choice, every lie, every betrayal led to this. You wanted to be the hero of your own story so badly that you turned your wife into the villain. Congratulations. You've created your own worst enemy. The valet had her car ready, James's car, not Marcus's. As she slid into the back seat, she caught a glimpse of Marcus stumbling out of the restaurant, looking like a drowning man. Their eyes met across the crowd of photographers, and for just a moment, she saw the man she'd married. Lost, confused, realizing too late what he'd thrown away. Then the car door closed, and he was gone. Just another stranger in a city full of them. "Where to, Mrs. Blackwood?" the driver asked. "It's Miss Sterling now," she corrected gently. "And take me to my brother's place. I have a war to plan." As the car pulled away from the curb, Victoria placed her hand on her belly, feeling the baby move. "It's okay, little one," she whispered. "Mommy's here. Mommy's got you. And anyone who tries to hurt us is going to learn what Sterling women are really made of." Behind them, La Perle glowed in the night, a beacon of scandal that would burn bright in New York society for years to come. The table flip heard round the Upper East Side. The night Victoria Sterling stopped being a victim and became a legend. The aftermath of the confrontation was nothing short of spectacular. Victoria had barely made it to the car before the videos started hitting social media. Within minutes, Tablegate was trending on Twitter. The live stream from the tech entrepreneur had already garnered 50,000 views and climbing. Someone had set the table flip to classical music, Beethoven's Symphony. None 5, and it was rapidly becoming a meme. But the real devastation was just beginning to unfold inside La Perle. Marcus stood in the wreckage like a general surveying a battlefield after a catastrophic defeat. Champagne still dripped from his hair, forming small puddles around his handmade Italian shoes. A piece of arugula clung to his lapel like a green flag of surrender. His phone was buzzing incessantly, board members, investors, his mother, but he couldn't seem to move, couldn't seem to process what had just happened. "Sir," the maitre d' appeared at his elbow, professional mask firmly in place despite the chaos. "Perhaps you would like to use our private entrance to exit. The press outside has grown considerably." Through the windows, Marcus could see the mob of photographers had tripled. Entertainment reporters, financial journalists, gossip bloggers, everyone who was anyone in New York media was converging on La Perle. Someone had even brought a news van. "This can't be happening," Marcus muttered, finally finding his voice. "This is a nightmare." "Oh, it's happening." Richard Blackwood, his cousin and chief rival, stepped carefully through the debris, his phone still recording. "And it's magnificent. Tell me, Marcus, was it worth it? Was she worth destroying your entire life?" "Shut up, Richard. I'm just saying what everyone's thinking." Richard's smile was carnivorous. "You had everything. The perfect wife from the perfect family, a baby on the way, the company thriving, and you threw it all away for what? A gallery girl half your age?" "She's not just a gallery girl," Marcus started hotly, then stopped, realizing the trap. "No. Then what is she? The love of your life? Your soulmate?" Richard laughed. "She ran out of here like the building was on fire. Face it, cousin, you played yourself. And now we all get to watch you burn." Marcus's phone rang again. This time he recognized the number Margaret Blackwood, his mother. The woman who'd built the family name from nothing, who'd taught him that image was everything, that scandal was death. With trembling fingers, he answered, "Mother, I can explain." "Don't." Her voice was arctic. "I've already seen the videos, multiple angles, in fact. That poor girl, 7 months pregnant, and you. She's crazy. She flipped a table. She assaulted me." "She revealed you," his mother corrected coldly. "In front of everyone who matters. Do you have any idea what you've done? The stock price is going to crater. The board will call for your head. And the family name." She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was tired. "Your father would be ashamed." The line went dead. Marcus stared at his phone, then hurled it against the wall where it shattered, adding to the evening's destruction. Around him, the restaurant staff worked quietly to clean up, avoiding his eyes. The other diners had mostly fled, but a few remained, speaking in hushed tones, their eyes tracking his every move. He needed to leave. He needed to get home, regroup, call his lawyers, his PR team, do damage control. But when he tried to move toward the exit, his legs felt leaden. Through the windows, he could see the paparazzi waiting like hungry wolves. He'd walk out there covered in food and shame, and those images would define him forever. The billionaire brought low by the wife he'd betrayed. "Mr. Blackwood?" A young waiter appeared, holding Marcus's phone, or rather, the pieces of it. I managed to save the SIM card." Marcus looked at the kid, probably a college student working for tips, treating him with more dignity than anyone else had all evening. "Thank you. For what it's worth," the waiter said quietly. "Your wife, ex-wife, she seems like a class act. My mom went through something similar. Took her years to stand up for herself. Your wife did it in style." Even the staff was against him. Marcus felt the walls closing in. He'd built his entire life on control, on being the one who dictated terms, who others deferred to. Now he was a joke, a cautionary tale, a meme. His salvaged SIM card started buzzing in a borrowed phone. Text after text flooding in. From his CFO, "Board calling emergency meeting. This is bad, Marcus." From his lawyer, "Do not speak to press. Do not post anything. Come to office immediately." From 3 different mistresses he'd juggled over the years. Variations of, "I'm telling my story and your wife contacted me." From his sister, "Mom's disinheriting you. She's already called the lawyers." But the one that made his blood run cold was from Harrison Cross, the Sterling family lawyer. Prenuptial Clause 15B enacted. Assets frozen as of 9:47 p.m. Bank accounts, credit cards, investment portfolios all require joint authorization effective immediately. Welcome to the war you started. Frozen. They'd frozen his assets. He tried to process this. He was worth billions. How could they just? But of course they could. The prenup he'd insisted on, the ironclad document that protected his premarital wealth, had been drafted by Sterling lawyers. He'd been so focused on protecting what he had, he'd never considered what he might acquire during the marriage, or what clauses they might have hidden in the fine print. "Sir?" The maitre d' had returned, looking uncomfortable. "There's the matter of the bill." "Bill?" Marcus laughed, high and slightly hysterical. "Put it on my account. I'm afraid there's an issue with your credit card. It's been declined." Declined. His black Amex, which could buy small companies, had been declined. Because his wife, his pregnant, publicly humiliated wife, had just demonstrated that she was far more dangerous than he'd ever imagined. "I'll cover it," a voice said from behind him. Marcus turned to see James Sterling approaching, looking like a man enjoying the best night of his life. Victoria's older brother, the ex-Marine who'd always looked at Marcus like something scraped off his shoe. "I don't need your charity," Marcus snarled. "It's not charity. It's a message." James pulled out his wallet, extracting a silver card. "From my sister. She wanted me to tell you that she's covering your last meal as a free man, because tomorrow you'll be too busy fighting for survival to enjoy anything." "This is ridiculous. I have lawyers." "Had," James corrected. "Did you really think Cromwell and Associates would stick with you after tonight? After the sexual harassment allegations? After the public meltdown? They're already drafting their withdrawal letter." Sexual harassment allegations? Marcus felt the ground shifting beneath his feet. "That's lies. That's Miranda Chen, Lisa Park, Jennifer Walsh." James ticked off names on his fingers. All former employees, all with recordings, emails, text messages, all ready to talk. See, while you were planning your little anniversary ambush, Victoria was building a case. She's got 18 months of evidence, Marcus. Every affair, every payoff, every dirty little secret you thought was buried. This couldn't be happening. This morning he'd been on top of the world, planning his exit from a marriage he'd grown bored with, setting up a new life with a younger, more exciting woman. Now, 9 hours later, he was standing in a destroyed restaurant covered in food, with his assets frozen and his reputation in ruins. "Why?" The word came out broken. "Why did she do this?" James's expression hardened. "Are you seriously asking that? You cheated on her, publicly, on your anniversary, while she's carrying your child, a child you told people might not be yours." "I was drunk. In vino veritas," James quoted. "You revealed exactly who you are, Marcus. A small, insecure man who was so threatened by his own fertility issues that he projected them onto his faithful wife. Do you have any idea what those IVF treatments put her through? The hormones, the procedures, the miscarriages?" "Of course I know." "Do you? Because while she was injecting herself with hormones every night, you were out with your parade of women. While she was grieving the babies you lost, you were telling yourself they probably weren't yours anyway." James stepped closer, and Marcus was reminded that this man had been Special Forces. "You want to know why she did this?" Because you gave her no choice. You backed a sterling woman into a corner and forgot that we're not prey. We're predators. The borrowed phone buzzed again. This time it was a news alert. Blackwood Industries stock futures down 12% in after-hours trading. 12%. Billions of dollars evaporating because he couldn't keep it in his pants, because he'd needed to feel powerful, desired, in control. It's going to get worse, James said conversationally. Tomorrow, when the harassment stories break, when the SEC starts investigating those insider trading allegations, when the board realizes their CEO is a liability. But hey, at least you had your fun, right? At least you got to feel like a big man for a few months. Marcus wanted to punch him, wanted to rage, to fight, to do something other than stand there like a fool in a ruined suit. But what was the point? He'd already lost. Victoria had outmaneuvered him completely. Tell her. He stopped, not knowing what message could possibly matter now. Tell her yourself, James said. In court, through lawyers, like the coward you are. He turned to go, then paused. Oh, and Marcus? You might want to find a hotel tonight. The penthouse locks have already been changed. Victoria's orders. After all, it's in her name too, and she doesn't feel safe with you having access. Locked out of his own home. It was the final indignity, or so he thought. As James left, Penelope Wade approached, her photographer in tow. The gossip columnist's eyes were bright with predatory glee. Marcus, care to comment on tonight's events? Our readers would love to hear your side of the story. He should walk away. His lawyer had said not to talk to press, but his ego, bruised and battered, demanded he defend himself. My wife is clearly suffering from pregnancy hormones, he began. She's become irrational, violent. The flash went off, capturing him in all his food-stained, champagne-dripping glory. So you're saying pregnancy made her crazy? Penelope's smile was sharp. That's your official statement? That the woman you cheated on publicly is the irrational one? Too late, Marcus realized his mistake. But the words were out there, recorded, photographed, ready to be twisted into tomorrow's headlines. I need to go, he muttered, pushing past her toward the kitchen exit. One more question, Penelope called after him. Is it true you've been having affairs throughout your marriage? Our sources say at least a dozen women. Marcus fled through the kitchen, past startled staff, out into the alley behind the restaurant. His Aston Martin was parked there, small mercy, but when he tried to start it, nothing happened. The engine wouldn't turn over. A note was tucked under the windshield wiper, Victoria's handwriting. The car's in my name, too. Did you forget? Enjoy the cab ride. Try not to get any champagne on the seats. She'd disabled his car. His $600,000 custom Aston Martin, reduced to a very expensive paperweight. Marcus stood in the alley, covered in the debris of his anniversary dinner, locked out of his home, his assets frozen, his car dead, his reputation destroyed. Somewhere in the city, his pregnant wife was planning his complete annihilation. The board would meet tomorrow. The stories would break. The empire he'd built would crumble. All because he'd wanted to have his cake and eat it too. All because he'd underestimated Victoria Sterling. A cab finally stopped for him. The driver did a double-take at his appearance but said nothing. As they pulled away from La Perle, Marcus caught a glimpse of the restaurant's elegant facade. 5 years ago, he'd gotten down on one knee in that very spot and promised Victoria forever. Tonight, she'd kept that promise in her own way. She'd given him a night he'd remember forever. A public humiliation that would define him forever. A lesson in what happened when you betrayed a sterling woman. The table flip heard round the world. The night Marcus Blackwood learned that some mistakes couldn't be managed, minimized, or merged away. Some mistakes were fatal, and his had just killed everything he'd built. While Marcus was discovering the full extent of his predicament in that alley, Victoria sat in the war room of Sterling Holdings, surrounded by the army she'd been quietly assembling for months. The conference table was covered with documents, laptops, and phones that hadn't stopped ringing since the videos hit social media. But unlike the chaos at La Perle, this was controlled, purposeful, a military operation running with precision. The harassment victims are all confirmed, Melissa Yang, Victoria's personal attorney, announced. Miranda Chen has agreed to go on record with the Financial Times. Lisa Park is talking to the Wall Street Journal. Jennifer Walsh wants to do a full interview with 60 Minutes. Excellent. Victoria had changed out of the crimson dress into a sharp black suit. The grieving wife was gone. In her place sat a CEO preparing for a hostile takeover. What about the SEC? My contact says they've been building a case on the Pembroke acquisition for months, Harrison Cross reported. They just needed one more piece of evidence. The emails we provided should do nicely. Those emails. Marcus thought he'd been so clever, using encrypted servers and burner phones. He'd forgotten that Victoria had access to his home office, that she'd learned his passwords over years of marriage. Patient, dutiful Victoria, who'd never given him reason to suspect she was documenting everything. The prenup? She asked. Ironclad on the infidelity clause, but here's where it gets interesting. Harrison pulled up a document on his laptop. Remember that modification Marcus signed last year? When he was rushing to catch a flight to Shanghai? The one he said was just updating addresses. He never read it, added a rather fascinating paragraph about fiduciary responsibility to shareholders. Essentially, if his actions as CEO directly harm the company's value, he forfeits his claim to any appreciation in stock price during that period. Victoria smiled for the first time all evening. And losing 12% overnight would qualify? 15% by morning, I'd wager. Once the harassment stories break, 20 minimum. Harrison's eyes gleamed. He's not just losing half in the divorce, Victoria. He's potentially losing everything gained in the last 18 months. Good. She turned to her brother. Media response? James was scrolling through his tablet, grinning. Beyond our wildest dreams, the video has 10 million views across platforms. Team Victoria is trending worldwide. 3 major women's rights organizations want you as their spokesperson. And you'll love this, someone's already selling t-shirts with "Flip the Table on Toxic Men" printed on them. Donate any proceeds to women's shelters, Victoria said immediately. This isn't about profit. What about Marcus's mother? Melissa asked. Margaret Blackwood called 3 times. Victoria's expression softened slightly. Her mother-in-law had always been kind to her, had welcomed her into the family with genuine warmth. Set up a meeting, tomorrow afternoon. She deserves to hear the full truth from me. Speaking of truth, Harrison pulled out a thick folder. We need to discuss the nuclear option. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what was in that folder, the evidence that could destroy not just Marcus, but potentially Blackwood Industries itself. The offshore accounts, Victoria said quietly. $17 million skimmed from company acquisitions over 3 years, hidden in shell companies in the Caymans. Technical fraud, technical embezzlement, enough to put him in federal prison. Victoria stared at the folder. She'd discovered the account 6 months ago, during one of Marcus's business trips. She'd been looking for an insurance document in his office and found the hidden USB drive instead. Her first instinct had been to confront him. Her second, wiser instinct had been to call Harrison. If we use this, he goes to prison. The company collapses. Thousands of employees lose their jobs. Harrison's voice was neutral, presenting facts without judgment. Victoria thought of all those employees, good people who worked hard, who had families to support. They didn't deserve to suffer for Marcus's crimes. We hold it in reserve, she decided, a sword over his head. If he fights the divorce, if he tries to destroy me in the media, if he goes after custody. She touched her belly protectively. Then we use it. Otherwise, it stays sealed. Merciful, James commented. Dad would approve. It's not mercy. It's strategy. Victoria stood, pacing to the window. The city lights sparkled below, indifferent to the drama playing out in boardrooms and bedrooms across Manhattan. Marcus will expect me to go for the throat, to use everything immediately. By holding back, I keep him off balance, paranoid, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Psychological warfare, James nodded approvingly. I taught you well. You taught me to survive, Victoria corrected. Marcus taught me to thrive. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. She opened it and found a message that made her blood run cold. You think you've won. You have no idea what I'm capable of. This isn't over. Me. He's threatening you? Melissa immediately screenshotted the message. This is evidence. We can get a restraining order. No. Victoria's voice was calm. Let him threaten. Let him rage. Every text, every voicemail, every public statement, it's all evidence of who he really is. Give him enough rope. And he'll hang himself, Harrison finished. Your father used to say the same thing. Another text. The baby isn't mine. I'll demand a paternity test. I'll tell everyone you're a whore. Victoria actually laughed. Oh, Marcus, still playing checkers while I'm playing chess. She pulled out the paternity test results, the real ones, not the copy she'd thrown at him. 99. 9% probability of paternity. Tested 3 times at 3 different labs. He can demand all the tests he wants. Science doesn't lie. Why did you test 3 times? Melissa asked. Because I know my husband, knew him. He'd claim I doctored results, bribed labs. 3 independent tests, including one from a lab his own company uses for employee drug screening? Victoria smiled coldly. Checkmate. The war room continued its work through the night. Financial analysts calculating the damage to Marcus's net worth. Lawyers drafting custody agreements that would ensure he could never use their son as a weapon. PR specialists crafting Victoria's public response for maximum sympathy and minimum blowback. But through it all, Victoria kept thinking about that paternity test. The moment she'd gotten the results. The joy she'd felt, knowing she could finally prove to Marcus that their miracle was real. She'd planned exactly how to tell him over dinner, with champagne for him and sparkling cider for her. She'd even bought a little onesie that said Daddy's Boy to surprise him. That onesie was still in her drawer at the penthouse. Still in its tissue paper, tags attached. Another casualty of Marcus's betrayal. Victoria? Harrison's voice pulled her back. There's one more thing. Something James discovered this evening. Her brother looked uncomfortable, which was unusual. James Sterling didn't do uncomfortable. What is it? Sophia Chen, the woman from tonight. She's not who Marcus thinks she is. Victoria frowned. What do you mean? I mean she's not just some random art curator he seduced. She's Nathan Chen's daughter. The room went still. Nathan Chen, Marcus's biggest rival in the tech space, the man who'd lost out on 3 major acquisitions to Blackwood Industries. You're saying she was a plant? Victoria couldn't quite process this. I'm saying Nathan Chen has been playing a longer game than any of us realized. His daughter gets close to Marcus, encourages the affair, ensures it's public. James shrugged. What better way to destroy your rival than from the inside? But she seemed genuinely upset tonight. The tears, the shock. Maybe she developed real feelings. Maybe she's just a very good actress. Either way, Marcus got played by everyone. His wife, his mistress, his rival. The man who prided himself on being the smartest guy in the room was actually the biggest fool. Victoria sank into her chair, overwhelmed by the layers of deception. Should we expose this? Why? Harrison asked. It doesn't change his culpability. He still chose to cheat, still chose to humiliate you publicly. Whether Sophia was bait or not, he took it willingly. He was right. Marcus's downfall was his own doing. The fact that others had helped orchestrate it was just karma. Her phone rang. Margaret Blackwood. I should take this, Victoria said. The others nodded, filing out to give her privacy. Margaret, she answered. My dear girl. Her mother-in-law's voice was thick with tears. I'm so sorry. I failed you. I failed my grandchild. I raised a monster. You didn't. I did. I saw the signs. The arrogance, the entitlement. I told myself it was ambition, drive. I made excuses because he was my son. But after tonight, Margaret's voice broke. The way he treated you, pregnant with his child, on your anniversary, it's unforgivable. What will you do? What I should have done years ago. I'm calling a board meeting tomorrow. As the family's majority shareholder, I'm proposing a vote of no confidence in the CEO. Margaret's voice hardened. He won't just lose his marriage, Victoria. He's going to lose his company. Victoria closed her eyes. She hadn't asked for this, hadn't wanted to destroy the entire Blackwood empire. But choices had consequences, and Marcus had made his. I'm also changing my will, Margaret continued. Everything goes to my grandchild. Marcus gets nothing. He's no son of mine. Margaret, that's not necessary. It is. You're the daughter I always wanted, Victoria. You brought grace and dignity to our family. He brought shame. The baby you're carrying? That's the future of the Blackwood name. And I'll make damn sure Marcus can't taint it." After they hung up, Victoria sat alone in the conference room, hand on her belly. The baby was quiet now, probably sleeping. She wondered what she'd tell him someday about this night, about his father, about the empire that crumbled before he was even born. "Your daddy was complicated," she whispered. "He was brilliant and charming and deeply, deeply flawed. He loved power more than people. He loved the idea of family more than the reality of it. But you, my little one, you're going to be different. You're going to be better." A knock on the door. Harrison peeked in. "The Sterling jet is ready. We can have you in Boston by morning, safe at the family compound." Boston, her childhood home, where Sterling women had been retreating to lick their wounds and plan their victories for over a century. "No," Victoria decided. "I'm staying in New York. This is my city, too. I'm not running." Harrison smiled proudly. "Your father would be so proud. Shall we continue planning?" "We shall." Victoria stood, energized by sudden clarity. "But first, I want to do something." "What's that?" "I want to buy La Perle, the whole restaurant, tonight, if possible." "Why?" Victoria smiled, and it was the smile of a woman who'd found her power. "Because Marcus proposed to me there, because he tried to end our marriage there, because he thinks that place belongs to him, to his memories. I want to own it. I want to renovate it. I want to turn it into something new, and I want him to know that every time he passes by, every time someone mentions it, that I took that too. Poetic justice? Just justice. Make the call, Harrison. Money is no object." As Harrison reached for his phone, Victoria looked out at the city again. Somewhere out there, Marcus was probably raging, plotting, planning his counterattack. Let him. She had the truth on her side. She had the evidence. She had the support of his own mother. Most importantly, she had something he'd never understood, something all his billions couldn't buy, the strength that came from surviving betrayal, the power that came from refusing to be a victim. Tomorrow the war would begin in earnest. Lawyers would file papers. Stories would break. Stock would crash. An empire would fall. But tonight? Tonight, Victoria Sterling was exactly where she needed to be, in control, in command, and finally free. The next morning hit Marcus Blackwood like a tsunami. He woke up in a mid-tier hotel room the Four Seasons had mysteriously been fully booked when he'd tried to check in to find his phone vibrating with endless notifications. The borrowed phone from the restaurant had been replaced with a cheap burner, his assistant Patricia having mysteriously become unreachable overnight. The first headline he saw made him drop the phone. Blackwood's dark secret. 3 women come forward with harassment claims. The second was worse. SEC opens investigation into Blackwood Industries CEO insider trading allegations surface. The third was a death blow. Margaret Blackwood calls emergency board meeting vote of no confidence expected. His own mother. The woman who'd built the company from nothing, who'd taught him everything about business, was moving against him. Marcus's hands shook as he scrolled through the stories, each one more damaging than the last. The Financial Times had Miranda Chen's full interview. She'd kept recordings of their late-night meetings, including one where he'd explicitly promised her a promotion in exchange for private consultations. The audio was damning. The Wall Street Journal had gone deeper, connecting dots between his affairs and suspicious trading patterns. Every time he'd started a new relationship, there'd been unusual activity in certain stocks. The SEC was very interested in whether Pillow Talk had led to insider trading.